initially the reaction of, oh my God, the 5070 is cheaper than the 4090 and delivers the same performance.
Way
this is
cheaper.
amazing, great, universally positive. That's the first reaction. And then the second wave reaction that I saw was, wait a second, really?
We're going to cover this together. We're not gaming channels.
No.
There are gaming channels. You all know LTT and Gamers Nexus will do the like insane coverage of
I've
this
watched
stuff.
some of them.
I watched some. I watched
usually don't.
Linus's first one.
Yeah, I watched some of
too.
the highlight stuff. Yeah.
So let's start with the graphics card.
It's RTX 5070, 5070 Ti, 5080, 5090.
That's what got released. Correct.
That's what got shown on stage. And they had the price tags, and there was a big screenshot of like, this one's cheap, it's a good deal. This one's expensive, that's crazy.
Cool. Let's start there.
Yeah.
Prices.
Good way to start.
5070, $549. 5070 Ti, $749. 5080, $999. 5090, $1,999. So the thing that strikes right there is that I believe the 5070, 5070 Ti, and 5080, if you take their 40 series counterparts, are all cheaper than they were when the 40 series originally came out.
That's good.
The 5090 is $400 more than the original
4090.
$1,600 base of the 4090 when it first came out.
Okay.
$2,000 is a crazy number.
Was the 4090 the first one to have a 90?
I thought there was a
model?
3090.
Was there a 3090? Okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
Was there a 20?
I know the 4090 was pretty
Us
high.
asking
We made a
that is
video, but-
where you should gauge how much you take.
I used to be
Our information
really
is
into
a
this stuff
3090.
a long time
Same.
ago. Yeah.
The 3090, I believe, is the one that we got in the main
I thought that was a
gear.
4090.
I'm pretty sure
The
it's a
8K gaming one,
3090.
so the 3090?
The 3090 was like I've always found gaming so interesting, graphics cards specifically, because tech just gets so small and gaming
3090.
does get smaller, but it costs so much money to make your computer smaller that just like PC gaming computers are still gigantic.
Wow,
and
look
we're
at
still
how
spending
empty
so much
the
money.
studio was back
know.
then.
Oh my God.
So that was 4 years ago. We did a RTX 3090 with gaming in 8K, and it handled it, and we uploaded the video in 8K, and we nearly broke YouTube processing, but
It took like a week to process, I
it
think.
literally took a week to process in 8K. Yeah.
wow.
So I think what I always find interesting with graphic cards, especially from Nvidia being released, is there's always like two groups. It's what's like the cheapest one that I can compare to a previous series, and then what's the most expensive one.
Yeah.
Here we have the $2,000 5090, and one thing they said on stage was that the 5070 at $550 is comparable performance to the 4090
This is the one I saw the most chatter about.
for sure.
Because
I think that is the most chatter.
initially the reaction of, oh my God, the 5070 is cheaper than the 4090 and delivers the same performance.
Way
This is
cheaper.
amazing, great, universally positive. That's the first reaction. And then the second wave reaction that I saw was, wait a second, really? And I think a lot of what Jensen, the CEO of Nvidia, said on stage about AI, frame interpolation, X percentage of these pixels are rendered, but the rest of them are AI generated. That being not exactly the same as a 4090 is what most of the conversation I've seen has been about. I still think it's going to be a good card. It's $550. It's going to give you great performance. Seems like it. Linus did a video of being the first one to game on one of these cards. Like, it looks like it's going to be a good card. But
So
I think that line was what got
In Linus's video, he got to try Cyberpunk on two computers right next to each other. One had a 4090 in it, one had a 5090 in it. And from the frames he was getting double the frames in Cyberpunk at like full settings. Now, there's a lot of questions to how it was set up in the like full
it's an
settings. He
internal
went through
demo.
it quickly.
Yeah.
They're obviously going to pick things that work really well. And there were some things that weren't quite perfect. I think one of them specifically was if you were moving really fast, the text in the like UI or like floating text was blurry and some things weren't quite doing as well. So I'm interested to see what their real findings are when they're outside of the Nvidia booth that they got like captured into
I think
after the event.
people are going to find ways to expose the AI part.
I think the biggest question is like what you said, is if we're focusing so much on AI because they introduced Blackwell chipset or something in it, that there's so much AI, and they even said the reason the 5070 can be comparable to the 4090 would be impossible without the AI enhancements that they made.
Right.
So clearly there's a lot of AI helping in here, and whether those frames are comparable is what we will find out from all of these different, gaming channels that dive really deep into it.
Yeah.
But I think people listening to us that right now aren't calling us morons because there's a lot of them and I understand why you're
two
doing
types
it.
of people.
The other type of people who are like, oh, cool, a 5070 might be somewhat comparable to a 4090 and for $550. Those people probably will be like, cool, I'm getting some frames and things generally do look pretty good for this price tag. I think the 5070 looks like the more interesting lineup right now.
The architecture of the chip is obviously going to be focused on AI because that's what Nvidia is focusing everything on right now. And something that AI is good at is upscaling. So I would imagine that a lot of the frames that they're quoting is with their enhanced upscaling capabilities. Because you can just interpolate frames and have them be a higher quality and also interpolate resolution. So I imagine the discourse when these cards come out is going to be like, well, what's the true performance? And then like, the upscaling kind of messed up here and it doesn't look perfect. And there's going to be a lot of discourse around that.
I almost want to make a graph of like the 4090 got here and this new card is going to get slightly higher, but then plus AI.
Plus AI?
It makes it double. You're like, oh, okay.
And I think a lot of that will also depend on the how optimized games are for specific things like that as well. So like there could be some optimizations where some games are going to run way better on this new the AI chip or like the AI power from these new cards. So it's like every piece of tech, it's going to be super subjective to like what you're doing. But either way, it's like, I think this is hands down the most chatter from CES.
Yeah. You know, it's funny. So the 5070 549, I've not followed this stuff super closely for a long time, but in, I don't know, 2015 or something, 2014, when the 970 came out, I remember that being a big deal because it had 4 gigabytes of video memory, except only 3.5 of those gigabytes, by the way, $349. So just saying, it was like $200 cheaper, and that was like considered a great deal.
Yeah.
But I had 3.5 gigs of super fast video memory and then half a gig of super slow video memory. They got sued over it. I got a $35 check in the mail over a class-acting lawsuit.
Everyone's gotten that $30 check. Mine was from AMD a long time ago.
Yeah. Also, Jensen wore this alligator
jacket?
He changed his jacket to be an alligator leather.
We're saying it was the RTX jacket.
It was
the
kind of
RTX on jacket. Yeah.
He usually wears this jacket. It's like just a regular leather jacket that he wears at every single trade show.
But he upgraded it.
But he upgraded it to, let me see if I can find a photo.
I think
I'm sure if you generate $1 trillion in shareholder value, you can just grab a new jacket.
I think that's sort of what the vibe is. All the billionaires recently have been flexing.
Crazy jackets.
Zuck has his chains,
Should we get new jackets?
We're not billionaires.
We're not $1 trillion yet.
I don't think we get to do that.
My favorite comment on one of the videos covering this was after he announced the pricing, he pulled out this like cardboard cutout of like the chip so that he could show what all the different things were physically.
Yeah.
But was holding in front of him was a big circle, and someone's like, he had to pull the shield out after he announced prices to the crowd that apparently just went kind of silent when the 5090 price got.
I watched one of those supercuts of like them showing the prices, and them showing the 5070 got a lot of people riled up, and then they revealed the entire price spectrum and everyone went, oh.
I will say 5080 $999 to 5090 $1,999 is nuts.
That's crazy.
Like,
there's got to be a 5080 Ti coming out at some point,
Probably.
right? Or
maybe at
something's
going to
slip in between
5060
there.
and 50.
So I have a question that might not be able to be answered if you haven't been in the thick of this for a while, but I'll throw it out there anyway.
I'll try.
Are GPUs in the same kind of category as smartphones where when the new one comes out, the last generation ones drop in price, where they might be a better deal?
They don't really sell them much anymore after that.
Okay.
Generally, it's like you have to get them secondhand, but they drop in price by a lot.
Right. Because nobody wants a 4070 anymore.
Yeah.
Even though it was probably just fine as a card literally a year ago.
Yeah.
So I kind of
if they're available, I'm sure they get grabbed pretty quickly when they drop. And secondary market of GPUs is like the worst thing you could go into because they'll all be like lightly
Crypto
used,
mining.
and lightly used means like
For crypto mining.
They've been 2 straight years
They've
of
been mining
mining.
for 2.5 years.
Straight, like
They will
literally
probably
never
just
turn
stop
off.
working soon. Yeah.
I have a question. Is this one of the first GPUs to quote to use AI to enhance performance?
Sure not,
No,
but
they've been
it's-
using the DLSS thing for a while.
Is it just like a rebrand of like now we're calling this?
I think they're
like, AI?
dedicating more compute specifically to drive that more. I think that, I mean, this is the whole theme of CES in general is how can we lean into AI making our stuff better? And if you're NVIDIA, it's let's make as many improvements to this specific technology in these GPUs as possible, even though it's existed for a while.
Yeah.
So that's how you get
lots of flops going on. That's how I know. I have no idea what's going on,
Lots
and
of
we're just all
teraflops.
AI.
Don't fall
based
for the
now.
trap.
So yeah, that was the headlining event was Nvidia's announcements.
They also did a couple quick things that
Yeah.
David might be able to do
Yes.
better on, which was their like personal AI supercomputer
Yeah.
and this like robotic chip.
They announced your own personal supercomputer, which, to be clear, they also announced a like lighter, way cheaper version of this in December, which was $250 and could do 8 billion parameters. But they announced one at CES that can do 200 billion parameters and is $3,000.
It was like the size of a Mac Mini.
It's like
it
the
was
size
like
of a
a
Mac Mini.
gold Mac Mini.
It sort of looks like a Mac Mini if it was 3D printed.
a current Mac Mini, like the new-
Current Mac Mini.
wow.
It's tiny. It's called Nvidia Digits. It has 128 gigabytes of unified memory and 4 terabytes of NVMe storage. So definitely fast. You can link 2 of them together to handle 405 billion parameters. And for context, I think Meta's top tier Llama model is exactly 405 billion parameters. So it's like you could run your own top tier Llama model on it for $6,000.
Yeah, I guess my primary question was going to be, what do you do with one of these that you wouldn't? do
So
on
it's mostly for startups and people that want to develop AI applications.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay.
But it is crazy because you used to have to like rent out like cloud processing for like a lot of money to be able to do this kind of stuff from different companies, and now you can have one locally.
The value proposition is like it runs dramatically faster and probably more efficiently if you have all this locally, and you can do way more development on that machine rather than depending on paying someone for cloud.
You own it in person instead of doing it in the cloud.
Got it.
And also you have access to all of NVIDIA's like, models and software libraries and development kits and stuff.
Which have great names, by the way.
Yeah,
They just all have great names.
they do.
Lots of llamas and stuff. It's just,
Yeah.
it's great.
Yeah. So it runs on a Linux-based DGX OS and supports all these different frameworks. It's pretty cool for startups, I would say. Like, I think the $250 one is probably for like the hobbyist or high school student or college
AI
student,
hobbyist.
which is becoming a thing.
It is.
Yeah, becoming a thing. But if you're a startup, like $6,000 to run 2 of these in parallel and run like some of the top tier models is pretty good value proposition.
Yeah.
I
did not pay much attention to the robotics thing. Did you?
I didn't. Okay, here are the 2 things that I remember from it, and they're going to be extremely vague.
Okay.
And one is just more funny. So the one thing I saw is that they were developing some sort of like, I don't know if like digital teaching for humanoid robots. So like the reason we can do all this automation in cars is because we can attach cameras to cars and figure that out. Whereas we can't just send test humanoid robots out all over the place. So they have a lot of video that they're taking from to teach robots digitally and do all of these different tasks and stuff in a digital world. So it's not creating massive wear and tear on robots and chaos, I guess.
Yeah.
Which I thought was kind of cool. But
NVIDIA has
fully
also
understand.
done that to train its car systems.
Okay.
It's like car visual learning
It's like
systems.
digitally.
It trains them in a virtual world. So it can do it way faster and without actually hurting anybody.
If we kept all of it in that digital world, I'd be okay with it.
Yeah.
The other funny thing I just saw is, I'm pretty sure it was on a screen and not physically, but he talked about this robotic chip and how this new chip could power a robotic brain or a function, something of it. And they brought up all these different potential humanoid robots in the back, and Tesla Bot just wasn't one of them, which I thought was funny.
This is going to be
Optimus?
Atlas was there.
Atlas was there.
Oh, so
Wasn't there?
Optimus was not. No, yeah, Atlas was there. Optimus was
This is going to be the EV week at the White House moment, except for robotics, huh?
Tesla makes their own chip, right? Or do they use
they
NVIDIA
do.
chips? So they make their own chips. So maybe NVIDIA is just trying
It's
to show
probably
things
that.
that use their own chips.
Does
I
the
don't
Boston
know.
Dynamics one use an NVIDIA chip? Probably.
I wouldn't be shocked.
I have no clue.
I don't know, to be clear. But yeah, I would assume that that's what they're doing.
If you guys could have anything be unveiled at CES, your weirdest, wildest imaginations, what would it be?
It would be a subscribe button that is on wheels and has an arm that reaches out of it and clicks it every time someone subscribes to your channel.
So
And it just sits there doing that to itself every time you get a subscriber, and it just has the arm pop out of the top.
What does it sound like?
That's
Just
not bad.
just a tap.
Yeah, like a thud.
What would you want, David?
I would want a like button that every time you push it, it has a thumb that pops out of itself and it goes, yeah.
And that's an LLM that does that.
Yeah.
Sure.
It's
Why
the
not?
model is just, yeah.
Running locally on devices.
Of course.
Of course.
I think if I could take anything from
terabytes of data.
CES, it would be the second largest search platform masquerading as the first largest search platform.
Nice.
Google masquerading as Google.
We'll probably make that happen.
Gemini masquerading as Google.
Thanks,
for
Bing.
watching.
Thanks for listening.